Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're heading to Bacheda village in Uttar Pradesh, northern India. If you picture it, quiet, dusty lanes, it's nestled in the rugged Bundelkhand region.
Sounds peaceful, right?
Yeah.
Almost idyllic.
Exactly. But beneath that surface, a recent love story ran headlong into some very rigid tradition.
And the outcome was pretty shocking.
Yeah, we're talking about a massive fine, huge, and a social boycott clamped down on a family by the village's unofficial council, the panchayat.
And this wasn't like decades ago. This just happened in 2025.
Right. So today we're diving deep into just how far some communities might go to enforce these old rules even now, and the very real human cost involved.
It really highlights the enduring power of these traditional structures in rural India, doesn't it? How they can sometimes just override everything else, individual choice, even family agreement, formal laws.
So this Bacheta incident, it's not just a one-off.
No, not at all. It's a really stark example of this tension that plays out in many, many villages.
Okay, let's get to the heart of it. The story revolves around a young couple.
Right.
She's a lady constable from the Yadav community working up in Lakh now. He's an inspector from the Patel community.
So two different castes, different communities within that social hierarchy that, well, still exists.
Exactly. And here's a detail that sort of adds warmth, but then makes the later stuff feel even harsher. They were childhood sweethearts.
Ah, okay. So this wasn't just a whim. It was a real connection built over time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets, honestly, quite frustrating. They decided to get married. The wedding was April 30th, 2025.
Okay.
And here's the crucial bit. Both families gave their blessing. Both sides were okay with it.
Right. So it wasn't like they eloped or defied their parents. The families were actually on board.
Totally on board, which leads to the obvious question.
If the families were happy, why did the village kick up such a fuss?
Exactly.
And the answer, it seems, lies with the village panchayat. These unelected, unofficial councils, they still hold enormous social power.
Unelected, you said.
Yeah, they operate outside the formal system. And in this case, they apparently saw this inter-caste marriage, even with family approval, as a kind of challenge.
A challenge to their authority, to the social order they think they need to maintain.
Precisely. They viewed it as an affront, was the term used.
An affront. Wow. Okay, so what did they do? The panchayat met just a couple of weeks later, right? May 13th.
They did. And they handed down their judgment, their decree. And it was harsh. Really harsh.
How harsh are we talking?
Well, first, the financial blow. A staggering fine of 20 lakh rupees slapped right on the constable's family.
20 lakh. I mean, just put that in context for a rural family. That's an unimaginable amount of money.
It's astronomical.
Yeah.
Immediately tells you this isn't about some minor rule breaking. This is punitive. It's meant to send a message.
And there was more, wasn't there? Something about interest.
Oh, yeah. As if the 20 lakh wasn't enough, they threatened an interest rate of 3 rupees per day if it wasn't paid quickly.
3 rupees a day. It sounds almost medieval, like some kind of predatory, crippling debt sentence.
It does. It's designed to be this constant grinding pressure. But the money, that was only part one.
Right, there's the social boycott too.
Exactly. Effectively making the family outcasts in their own village, ostracizing them.
In a small, close-knit community, that must be devastating, being cut off from everyone.
It's incredibly isolating. It means no daily interactions, no support from neighbors, sometimes being barred from essential community stuff.
And it hit their livelihood directly, didn't it? The family runs a dairy business.
Yes, a modest one. Selling milk to other villagers is how they survive.
So the boycott meant?
People just stopped buying their milk. Overnight, their income source dried up.
Wow.
The constable's mother talked about it, the unsold milk, sure, but also just the breakdown of basic neighborly ties. It's not just losing money, it's being treated like you don't exist. Or worse.
God, can you just imagine that? Waking up every day knowing your whole community has turned its back on you. And facing that impossible 20 lakh fine.
It's immense pressure. And the mother's question really gets to you, doesn't it? She basically said, our daughter is married and happy. What wrong have we done?
It cuts right through all the justifications, doesn't it? What did they do wrong?
Nothing. By any reasonable standard. The punishment is utterly disproportionate. It's absurd. It's clearly about control, about enforcing these rigid social rules, no matter the human cost.
So Facing this immense pressure from their own community, what did the family do? They went to the police, right?
They did. They turned to the formal legal system, hoping for protection, for some kind of justice.
And what happened? Did the police step in immediately?
Well, according to the reports, the initial response wasn't quite what they'd hoped for. The local police apparently tried to pacify the family.
Pacify. What does that usually mean in these situations? Go home and sort it out yourselves. Don't make trouble.
Often, yes. It suggests trying to smooth things over, maybe encouraging them to compromise or back down, rather than immediately filing a formal case and confronting the panchayat. It can feel like a reluctance to wade into what's seen as a messy village dispute.
So no immediate help then?
It seems not. It actually took several weeks. It wasn't until June 9th that the constable's father, Chiranjalal Yadav, got some official attention.
How did he manage that?
He had to attend something called the Garota Samadhan. It was basically a public grievance day held at the main district police office. So he had to escalate it, go up the chain.
Right. So weeks went by living under this boycott with this huge fine hanging over them before they even got the system to properly listen.
Exactly. And you can imagine the toll that must have taken on the family during those weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. That delay itself is part of the problem, isn't it? Shows how hard it can be to get help when local authorities maybe hesitate to challenge these powerful community groups.
It really does. And this whole story, as awful as it is for Chiranjalal Yadav and his family, it really isn't just about Bacheda, is it? It points to something much bigger.
You mean the power of these caste panchayats?
Exactly. These groups, they operate outside the official legal structures. They aren't elected, they aren't really accountable to anyone formally, but they wield immense social and economic power in many rural areas.
And this case is like Exhibit A of how they use that power.
Pretty much. Using it to enforce traditional caste rules and hierarchies, even when those rules clash head-on with individual rights, with family wishes, with modern law.
It shows how resistant some communities are to social change, doesn't it? Still clinging to these old divisions.
Absolutely. And it really highlights the challenge of dismantling the caste system. It brings to mind people like Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who was central to writing India's constitution.
What did he say about this?
Well, he argued very forcefully that endogamy, the rule about marrying only within your own caste, wasn't just a feature of the caste system, it was its very essence, its core.
So breaking that rule through inter-caste marriage.
From Ambedkar's viewpoint, that was absolutely crucial. Not just a personal choice, but a necessary step towards actually dissolving the whole system.
So when the Bacheda Panchayat reacts so strongly, it's not just about this one couple, it's about defending the very foundation of the caste structure itself.
That's certainly one way to interpret it, yeah. They're defending the system that relies on controlling who marries whom.
Which is interesting because officially, the government seems to encourage inter-caste marriage, right? There are schemes.
Yes, the government does signal support. There's the Dr. Ambedkar Scheme for social integration, for instance. It offers money, 2.5 lakh rupees currently, to couples who marry intercaste, especially if one partner is from a scheduled caste or SC.
2.5 lakh, that's quite a bit.
It is. And they even removed the income limits back in 2017 to make it easier to access.
Although, just to clarify, in this Bacheda case, both communities, Yadav and Patel, are OBCs, other backward classes, not SCs.
Correct. But the existence of such schemes does show an official intention, at least on paper, to promote these kinds of marriages.
But you hear these schemes don't get used that much.
That seems to be the case. The uptake is often quite low. It suggests that for many couples, the financial incentive just isn't enough to outweigh the potential social backlash, the stigma, the kind of thing we're seeing in Bacheda.
Which leads us to the legal side of things. You mentioned social boycotts. Are there laws against them?
Well, it's patchy. Some states do have specific laws. Maharashtra is a key example. They passed the Maharashtra Protection of People from Social Boycott Act back in 2016.
And what does that law do?
It makes social boycott a crime, a serious one. You could face up to 7 years in prison, plus a fine of up to 5 lakh rupees.
Wow, okay, so that gives people real legal teeth to fight back.
Exactly. And it has been used. There was a case in Pune in 2017, the Umesh Rudrap case, where panchayat members were actually arrested under this very act for boycotting a family over an intercaste marriage. It shows that when a dedicated law exists and it's enforced, it can make a real difference.
And this feels like a big, but Uttar Pradesh, where Bacheda is.
Uttar Pradesh does not have a similar state-level law specifically targeting social boycott.
Ah. So that leaves families like Churnalal Yadav's in a much tougher spot, legally speaking.
It does. They don't have that specific legal tool to fight this particular form of harassment. Other laws exist, of course, like the SEST Prevention of Atrocities Act, but that doesn't neatly fit here because both families are OBC.
So you have the Indian Constitution saying you have the right to marry who you choose.
Absolutely. Article 1001, right to life and personal liberty, is interpreted to include that.
But actually enforcing that right on the ground, in a village where the panchayat hold all the local power and there's no specific state law against boycotts, that's where it gets incredibly difficult.
Precisely. And that initial police hesitation, the pacifying, maybe reflect that practical difficulty, that gap between the constitutional ideal and the reality on the ground.
It seems like such a tough situation. Are there any signs of things changing? Any glimmers of hope?
Well, beyond the central government's Ambedkar Scheme, some other states, like Gujarat and Haryana,
Yeah.
also have their own state-level schemes offering money for intercaste marriages. Again, it signals some level of official support.
So the idea is out there, at least.
Yes. And we do see cases where authorities have taken decisive action against this kind of thing, even without a specific boycott law, maybe.
Like where?
There was a case in Karnataka in 2023. A couple faced a huge fine, 6 lakh rupees, and a boycott. But the police acted swiftly, arrested about a dozen people using the SEST Act in that instance because one partner was SC. It shows action is possible when the will is there.
Okay, so enforcement matters.
Hugely. And another example from Odisha in 2024. A family was being ostracized. When they threatened legal action, the community leaders apparently backed down pretty quickly, denying they were involved. So sometimes just the threat of legal consequences can work.
Interesting. So protection is possible if the right laws are there and enforced, or if police are willing to step up strongly. But Bacheda shows how hard it is when those things are missing.
Exactly. It really underscores the vulnerability of families in that situation.
And back in Bacheda, the human cost is it's ongoing, isn't it? For Chiranjalal Yadav's family, it's not just about the money.
No, it's a full-on assault on their life. The boycott aims to cripple them, economically destroying their dairy business and cut them off socially. It's designed to break their spirit.
And that mother's question just hangs in the air. Our daughter is married and happy. What wrong have we done? It's so simple, so powerful.
It really lays bare the injustice. And that 20 lakh fine, plus the daily interest. It's become this symbol, hasn't it? A symbol of the panchayat's raw power and their attempt to control people's lives through fear.
But Chiranjalal didn't just accept it. His persistence, going to the district office, that shows real courage.
Incredible resilience, yes. Standing up against that kind of pressure from your entire community takes immense strength.
And this story, it resonates beyond Bacheda, doesn't it? It feels like it taps into wider issues in rural India.
Oh, absolutely. The power of these traditional structures, the persistence of caste thinking. These aren't unique to Bacheda. While this case is OBC's, if you look at Uttar Pradesh more broadly, the state unfortunately sees a high number of reported atrocities against scheduled castes. It just shows how entrenched these hierarchies still are across the board.
And it's such a contrast, isn't it, between this kind of village-level control and what you see, especially among younger people in cities, where intercaste marriage is becoming much more, well, normal.
It really is. There's this definite tension between clinging to old ways and the emergence of new attitudes, new realities. The power of the panchayat in these situations often relies purely on fear and demanding total conformity.
Challenging that takes bravery, like we saw, but also needs, what, better laws,
Yeah,
better enforcement.
all of the above, really. Robust legal frameworks, consistent enforcement by the police and authorities who are willing to protect individual rights over traditional dictates.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the situation in Bacheda, it's just kind of staggering, isn't it? Punishing a family with this crippling fine, this boycott, just because their daughter married someone she loved with everyone's blessing.
Yeah.
In 2025.
It feels absurdly cruel. But you also have to acknowledge the bravery of the couple, and especially Chirandula Yadav's family, for refusing to just bow down.
Yeah, their resilience is remarkable, and this case really hammers home the need for, well, maybe specific laws against social boycotts in states like UP that don't have them.
And for police to act decisively, and for more awareness generally that these support schemes exist, that the right to choose is a right.
It leaves you thinking, doesn't it? In a country making huge strides forward in so many areas, how can love between two adults celebrated by their families still come with such an outrageous price tag imposed by an unofficial group?
What does it tell us about that ongoing struggle? The fight for basic individual freedom and equality in places where tradition still tries so hard to dictate every aspect of life.
Definitely something to keep pondering. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.